I still remember every glance, every smirk, every whisper. I had no idea that a simple dinner invitation would turn into one of the most humiliating nights of my life. As I walked into that fancy restaurant, heads turned, but not in admiration. They scanned me from head to toe, their eyes silently screaming, "She doesn't belong here." My dress wasn't designer. My shoes weren't red-bottomed. I didn't have a gold necklace sparkling on my chest. I had chosen something simple, elegant, or at least that's what I believed. But when I reached the table, the fake smiles couldn't even pretend anymore. The first words hit me like a slap. "Wow, you're so brave to come dressed like that." I forced a smile, pretending not to notice. My hands trembled under the table as I unfolded the napkin, trying to look normal, trying to breathe. But their voices didn't stop. Another one chuckled. "Did you lose your luggage or—" The others laughed. My heart dropped. I wasn't expecting kindness, but this? Honestly, someone added, I didn't know thrift stores still sold that kind of fabric. Laughter erupted around the table. Each comment stabbed deeper than the last. I could feel the heat crawling up my face, burning my ears, making it harder to hold back the tears that were desperately forming behind my eyes. I glanced around, pretending to look for the waiter, but in reality, I was searching for an exit. Maybe if I just stood up. Maybe if I just walked away. But my legs wouldn't move. Something inside whispered, "Not yet. Stay. Watch. Let them show who they really are." Little did I know, the universe had a surprise waiting. As they mocked, the waiter arrived with menus. His eyes briefly met mine, kind, almost apologetic, as if he'd seen this before. But even his presence couldn't drown out the next cruel comment. "Do you even know how to read this menu? Or should we order something simple? Like water?" Their laughter echoed, bouncing off the marble walls. I gripped the menu so tight my knuckles turned white. My mouth opened to say something, anything. But what? Defend myself? Insult back? No, that wasn't who I was. I swallowed my pride, clenched my teeth, and told myself, just make it through this dinner. Just survive this. But survival wasn't the plan that night. Destiny had other ideas. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement near the kitchen. A man in a sharp black suit, carrying an air of absolute authority, stepped onto the floor. His presence alone shifted the energy. Waiters straightened up. Bartenders paused mid-pour. Conversations dimmed. Even my tormentors fell silent, for a brief second. They didn't recognize him at first. He walked with purpose, scanning the room as if looking for someone specific. His steps were measured, confident. The sound of his polished shoes hitting the floor echoed like a countdown. My heart pounded, not knowing why, but something was about to happen. Something big. And then, he locked eyes with me. For a split second, confusion washed over me. Do I know him? He started walking straight towards our table. Each step felt heavier, louder, until finally, he stopped right beside me. The entire table froze, jaws half open, waiting, confused, nervous, clueless about what was coming next. The man adjusted his cufflinks, glanced at everyone at the table, then back at me. His expression softened, but only for a second. Without breaking eye contact, he said loud and clear, "Ma'am, is everything all right?" His voice sliced through the tension like a knife. My so-called friends stiffened, exchanging nervous glances. One of them stuttered, who are you?" But he ignored them completely. His focus was only on me. "I apologize for the delay," he continued. "Your table should have been prepared earlier. Let me personally make sure everything is perfect for you tonight." The blood drained from their faces. Confusion morphed into panic. I opened my mouth, barely managing a whisper. "It's fine." But before I could finish, he cut me off with a smile, one that wasn't for me, but for them. A smile dripping with power. "Actually, I think they're the ones who should be apologizing. Aren't they?" His gaze shifted to the group, eyes sharp like razors. Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. No one dared breathe. Their smirks evaporated, replaced by something else. Fear. "Sir, I think there's some mistake," one of them mumbled. The man chuckled, not kindly. "No mistake." He turned slightly, raised his hand, and within seconds, 2 more staff members approached, standing behind him like bodyguards. "Gentlemen, ladies." His tone shifted, no longer polite. "This woman, right here, is not just a guest." He leaned forward, resting both hands on the table, letting every word land like a hammer. "She's my boss." Gasps. One dropped their fork. Another's wineglass trembled in their hand. "Wait. What?" One of them blurted out, their voice cracking. Their arrogance shattered in seconds. The man straightened up, crossed his arms, and delivered the final blow. "She owns this place." You could hear a pin drop. Their mouths opened, but no words came out. Shock had paralyzed every single one of them. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I wasn't sure if this was real. Was this actually happening? I looked at the man, the restaurant manager, trying to process his words. His expression was firm, proud, protective. And for the first time that night, I sat a little taller, straighter, stronger. "All those jokes about her clothes," he continued, his eyes slicing through them. "Funny how people reveal their true colors when they think no one's watching." One of the girls covered her face in shame. Another tried to interrupt. "We were just joking. It was just..." But the man cut her off, sharp as a blade. "No, you weren't joking. You were exposing yourselves. Congratulations." His arms unfolded, and he gestured toward the exit. "You're free to leave, immediately. Or," he smirked, "should I call security to escort you out?" The air turned heavier, thicker. No one dared to speak. No one dared to move. And in that moment, something inside me shifted forever. The girl who walked into this restaurant feeling small, insignificant, embarrassed, was gone. In her place stood a woman who finally realized her own worth. Not because of him, not because of the restaurant, but because life just gave me the clearest lesson I'd ever received. One of the guys finally stood up, hands raised as if surrendering. "Look, man, it's not what it looks like. We didn't know..." His words stumbled out like broken glass. The manager didn't blink. "Exactly. You didn't know. And that's the problem. You treated her like garbage because you thought she was beneath you." A girl, clearly panicking, stammered, We didn't mean it. We were just joking. You know, friendly teasing." Her fake smile melted the moment his eyes narrowed. "Funny. I didn't hear anyone laughing just now." His tone was ice cold. "But don't worry. This won't be forgotten. Ever." One by one, they shrank in their seats, avoiding eye contact, wishing they could disappear. I sat there, breathing deeper than I had in years. Watching every single one of them crumble under the weight of their own cruelty was something I didn't know I needed. It wasn't revenge. It was revelation. The manager turned to me, his expression softening. "Would you like me to remove them now, ma'am?" His voice was filled with respect. No, with allegiance. As if I were royalty. The same group who mocked me for not wearing a designer dress now looked like terrified little children waiting for punishment. And for the first time, I smiled. A real smile. One that wasn't forced. One that wasn't pretending. "No," I said, my voice calm but cutting. "Let them stay. Let them sit here and feel exactly what it's like to be small, invisible, powerless." Their faces turned pale. Their eyes darted around, trapped. The silence was suffocating. The same mouths that were full of mockery minutes ago were now completely dry. I could see their hands trembling, desperately gripping utensils like they could anchor themselves back into control. But control was gone. It belonged to me now, completely. The manager nodded. "As you wish, ma'am." Then he snapped his fingers, and within seconds, waiters rushed over, removing the menus from my table mates. Gone. Snatched. One of the girls gasped. What are you doing?" His reply was immediate. "This table no longer serves you." Panic erupted. You can't do this. We have reservations," one shouted. He simply raised an eyebrow. "No, she has a reservation. You have a problem." His words were bullets. Each one hit exactly where it hurt the most. I could feel the power shifting in the room, like the air itself had changed sides. The waiters didn't stop. They cleared the plates, the glasses, even the centerpieces. One by one, stripping away every privilege they thought they deserved, all while leaving me untouched. In fact, they brought me a new setting, a silver one, with a glass of wine, on the house. As the last plate was taken away, the manager tilted his head and asked me, "Would you like to move to the VIP lounge, ma'am? It's quieter, more private, more comfortable." The sparkle in his eye wasn't just respect, it was alliance. And for the first time ever, I wasn't the outsider. I was the one in control. I crossed my legs, leaned back, and let the moment breathe. "No," I finally answered, locking eyes with every single one of them. "I'm perfectly fine." Right here, a tremor ran through the group. They shifted in their seats like kids being scolded in front of the whole school. Suddenly, the floor wasn't so solid under their feet. The manager nodded respectfully. "Very well. Let me know if you need anything." He then turned to the staff and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Make sure her experience tonight is flawless. Prioritize her over anyone else in this restaurant." The message was clear. Crystal clear. The waiters returned with a completely different energy. They placed a fresh, exclusive menu in front of me, a menu that wasn't even offered to the general public. I glanced at it. Dishes that weren't listed online. Plates that even celebrities wouldn't get unless they knew someone. Guess what? I was someone. Meanwhile, the others sat frozen. Their menus were gone, their privilege stripped, their pride shattered. One tried to grab a waiter by the arm. "Excuse me, can we get—" But the waiter pulled back, replying firmly, "I'm sorry. I've been instructed not to serve this table." Boom. Another dagger. I took a sip of the wine they brought me. A rare vintage. Smooth. Perfect. The taste of irony lingered longer than the drink itself. I placed the glass down and smiled. "You were saying something earlier. About my clothes?" I asked, looking directly at the one who started it all. His face turned to ash. His mouth opened. But nothing came out. Just the soft wheeze of someone who'd been punched without warning, except the punch wasn't physical. It was humiliation. Raw. Undeniable. One of the girls desperately tried to change the subject. "So, what do you do exactly?" Her fake curiosity stank of survival. I laughed, a soft, elegant laugh. "Oh, me? I'm in hospitality." My eyes scanned the room slowly, letting the weight of the word sink in. "But more specifically, I invest in businesses, good ones. Ones that value people over appearances. I let that sentence marinate, and it burned them alive. The girl fiddled with her bracelet, trying to recover. That's amazing. We should totally catch up sometime. Her voice was syrup, fake and sticky. I tilted my head. Oh, you think? I let my smile stretch just enough to look dangerous. I assumed I was beneath your standards. Her mouth opened, then closed again. No sound, no comeback, no defense. Just empty panic swirling behind her glossy eyes. Another guy jumped in, forcing a chuckle. Come on, we were just messing around. No hard feelings, right? But even his laugh sounded like it was choking on itself. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. Funny thing, you never really know who someone is until you think you don't need them. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was suffocating, paralyzing, and utterly deserved. Yendo. A nervous chuckle broke the silence, followed by a desperate voice. It was just, jokes. Friends joke all the time. But the words felt hollow, flimsy, like paper set on fire. I tilted my head, slowly tracing the rim of my wine glass with my finger. Oh, so we're friends now? I asked, my voice dripping with venomous sweetness. They squirmed. No one dared answer. The tension strangled the air. One of the girls, practically trembling, muttered, Look, let's start over, okay? We didn't mean any harm. Her voice cracked halfway through. Her hands fidgeted, grabbing her purse like it might shield her from the storm she created. I stared at her for a moment, then smiled. Start over? I echoed, savoring the words. You mean, pretend the last 30 minutes didn't happen? My gaze scanned the table. Pretend you didn't mock me, belittle me, treat me like I was less. My tone was calm, terrifyingly calm. Another guy leaned in, desperate. Look, we didn't know. If we had known who you were... I raised a hand sharply, cutting him off mid-sentence. Exactly. My voice was sharp as glass. If you had known, meaning the only thing that matters to you is what someone can do for you. They fell silent again, eyes glued to the table, shoulders hunched, trapped in the mess they built with their own mouths. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't just surviving this night. I was owning it. Completely. I folded the napkin slowly, placing it on my lap with precision. A subtle power move. The manager remained nearby, arms crossed, watching like a silent guardian. The waiters hovered, attentive, but only to me. Every move, every gesture was a reminder that the dynamic had flipped. Permanently. I leaned forward, resting my hands on the table. Tell me, I began, locking eyes with the guy who mocked me first. When exactly did you decide that someone's worth was based on, what, their shoes, their dress, their handbag? My voice was velvet, sharp-edged velvet. He tried to speak but stumbled over his own tongue. I didn't mean... It was just... pathetic. Every excuse tasted worse than the last. Another girl jumped in, shaking. We swear. We weren't trying to be cruel. It got carried away. Her mascara smudged from wiping her eyes in panic. I tilted my head. Oh, it got carried away, did it? Tell me, what carried it? Your insecurity? Your obsession with status? Or just boredom? Each word was a hammer, cracking their fake personas one blow at a time. The facade of confidence they wore when I walked in was now in ruins. Then I smiled, not out of cruelty, but out of absolute clarity. You taught me something tonight, I whispered, loud enough for every soul at that table to hear. Never, ever, doubt the power of being underestimated. And at that moment, they finally understood. But it was too late. The guy leaned back, rubbing his face like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. But this wasn't a nightmare. This was reality. His reality now. Listen. We didn't come here to fight. He muttered, voice shaky, like he was negotiating with a ticking bomb. Too late. The bomb had already exploded. I rested my chin on my hand, smiling. No. You came here to feel superior, to feed your egos, to play the game where you decide who belongs and who doesn't. My fingers tapped the table slowly, rhythmically, matching the sound of their crumbling pride. Another girl tried to force a giggle. Look, it was just dinner. Can't we move past this? Her voice was sugar-laced desperation. I raised one eyebrow. Dinner? Oh, darling, this isn't dinner anymore. This is a lesson. A very expensive lesson. She blinked rapidly, mouth twitching like she wanted to speak but couldn't form words. Beside her, one of the guys whispered under his breath, "This is so embarrassing." But he wasn't wrong. It was. It was the most public, most humiliating unraveling of their fake, shallow image. Then the manager stepped closer, glancing at me. "Ma'am, would you like us to process their check now?" His words sliced through the air like a sword. Their heads snapped up in shock. "Wait, what check? We haven't even ordered anything," one of them blurted, voice shaking. The manager smiled. "Correct, you didn't. But you sat, you drank water, occupied a premium table, wasted staff time, and disrespected our owner." His smile widened. Polite, professional, lethal. "There is a fee for that." His words tasted like justice served cold. Panic flashed across their faces. "That's ridiculous," one snapped. "You can't charge us for sitting." But the manager remained unshaken. "Oh, but we can. It's written in our policy, under disruption fee. Normally, we don't enforce it. But tonight, well, tonight is special." A girl slammed her hands on the table, tears brimming. "This is insane. You're scamming us." The manager tilted his head. "No, ma'am. Scamming is pretending to be someone you're not. Mocking others to feel big. That's the real scam." His words hit harder than any bill could. I folded my arms, leaning back as I watched them unravel. "You were so worried about what I was wearing," I said softly. "Maybe you should have been worried about what you were revealing." Their hands trembled. Credit cards slid out, some rejected, some accepted, but none with dignity. One by one, they paid the price, not just in dollars, but in shattered pride, broken egos, and faces that would never forget this night. As the receipts printed, it wasn't just paper. It was proof. Proof that masks always slip, eventually. The sound of the receipt printing was the loudest thing in the room. Every tiny mechanical click felt like a bullet straight to their pride. One of the guys clenched his jaw so tight I thought his teeth would crack. The girl beside him dabbed her face with a napkin, trying and failing to hold back tears. "This is robbery," one mumbled under his breath. But no one defended him. No one backed him up, because deep down, they all knew. This wasn't robbery. This was karma. Served, fresh, elegant, on a silver platter, just like the water they thought was free. The waiter placed the receipt folder on the table, clearing his throat. "Whenever you're ready," he said politely. But the smirk hiding behind his professionalism was impossible to miss. I didn't even look at the bill. I didn't need to. This wasn't about money. This was about principle. As they scrambled to split the bill, whispering and fumbling with their phones, I took another slow sip of my wine. Smooth. Perfect. The taste of justice. I turned slightly, pretending to look at the artwork on the wall. But really, I was savoring every single second of their humiliation. Then, as the last card beeped, the manager stepped forward again. "Is there anything else you need, ma'am?" His tone wasn't just respectful. It was reverent, like I was the queen of this entire room. And honestly, at that moment, I was. I smiled, tapping my chin thoughtfully. "Actually," I said, letting the word hang in the air, "there is something." Every head at the table snapped toward me, eyes wide, breath held, waiting, hoping, dreading. I think, I paused, "you should thank me." My smile was razor sharp. One of the girls blinked rapidly, completely confused. "The thank you for what?" she stammered. I tilted my head, resting my hand on my cheek. "For teaching you a lesson. No school, no job, and no rich daddy could ever teach you." I let the silence stretch. Humility. The manager nodded approvingly behind me. "Well said." His voice was almost proud. The waiter beside him couldn't help but grin, hiding it behind his hand. The entire room, other tables, other guests, had fallen silent, pretending not to listen, but hanging on every word. One of the guys scoffed, trying to save face. "You know, you think you're better than us now." I raised one eyebrow, letting the smirk curl at the edge of my lips. "No." I leaned forward slightly. "I always was. You just didn't notice, until power changed hands." Silence. No comeback, no excuse, no witty retort. Just a heavy, suffocating cloud of regret, shame, and realization wrapping itself around every single one of them. I took another sip of wine, and for the first time in a long time, it tasted exactly like victory. The guy leaned forward, elbows on the table, trying one last desperate shot. "You think this makes you better? Flaunting power like this?" His words were trembling, but his ego was still fighting, barely holding on. I didn't even blink. "No," I said calmly. "This doesn't make me better. It simply reminds you. I always was." The waiter returned, silently placing a complimentary dessert in front of me, a luxurious gold-dusted chocolate sphere. For me. Only me. The others? Nothing. Not even water. I took the spoon, gently cracked it open, and smiled as the warm chocolate poured out like melted pride. The girl beside him fidgeted with her napkin, whispering, "This is humiliating." Her hands trembled. Her lips quivered. But not a single person came to her rescue. Everyone was too busy drowning in the realization of who they really were, when they thought no one was watching. I glanced around the restaurant. People were pretending not to look, but their stolen glances, their half-hidden phones recording under the table. They weren't fooling anyone. This wasn't just a private humiliation anymore. This was public, legendary, unforgettable. The manager leaned in slightly. "Ma'am, would you like me to post a photo of this group on our restaurant's social media? You know, as a reminder of our guest policy, respect over appearances." His smirk was subtle, dangerous, delicious. I laughed softly, shaking my head. "No, that won't be necessary," I replied, twirling the spoon between my fingers. "They'll remember this night, for the rest of their lives. No need to share it with the world. Their own shame is loud enough." My voice was silk wrapped around steel. The manager nodded, stepping back with a satisfied grin. The tension at the table grew heavier, like thick fog swallowing every ounce of fake confidence they'd walked in with. Their bodies slouched, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the table, anywhere but me. One of the guys tried to whisper something, but his voice cracked halfway through. His throat was dry, his pride even drier. The girl beside him pulled her jacket tighter, as if fabric could shield her from the weight of humiliation crashing down on her soul. "Do you know?" I started, tapping my spoon gently against the dessert. "What's worse than being poor?" I paused, letting the question hang mid-air like a loaded gun. Being morally bankrupt. And tonight, every single one of you just went bankrupt. Nobody argued. Nobody defended themselves. Nobody even pretended anymore. Because the truth was now louder than any lie they'd ever told, and there was no coming back from it. I gently set my spoon down, folded my hands, and leaned forward. My voice dropped, softer, but sharper. "You know," I began, letting my eyes scan across each miserable face, "the most fascinating thing about tonight is that none of you asked why I dress the way I do." Their heads slowly lifted, confused, nervous. "Because if you had," I let the pause hang, "you would have learned something. Something valuable, something you clearly never bothered to understand." The girl to my left bit her lip so hard it almost bled. One of the guys squeezed his fists under the table, his knuckles pale. "I choose this," I continued, gesturing to my simple dress. "I wear this because I don't need to prove anything to anyone. Not with fabric, not with shoes, not with brands. My worth isn't stitched into a label. It's written in who I am." Their faces fell even deeper into regret. The manager nodded nearby, crossing his arms, visibly proud. The waiter behind him chuckled under his breath. Even the tables around us, those pretending not to listen, were leaning closer now, hooked, wide-eyed, silently cheering me on without ever saying a word. But you. My eyes locked onto the one who laughed the loudest earlier. You thought expensive meant important. You thought designer meant dignity. And tonight, you learned how wrong you were. One of them finally broke. A girl at the far end slammed her napkin on the table. "Okay, we get it. You've made your point." Her voice cracked between anger and tears. Her mascara was streaked, her hands trembled. But no one rushed to comfort her, because they were all too busy drowning in their own shame. I stared at her calmly. "No, you don't get it," I replied, folding my arms. "Because if you did, you wouldn't be shouting. You'd be reflecting." Her lip quivered, her fist clenched. But she said nothing else. Nothing could save her now. Not from herself. "What happened tonight," I continued, my voice lowering but growing sharper, "wasn't an accident. It was a mirror. One that showed you exactly who you are when no one's watching. Or when you think no one matters." The silence grew heavier, thick, suffocating. The guy beside her buried his face in his hands. This is the worst night of my life," he mumbled. I tilted my head slightly. "Good," I whispered, ice running through every syllable. "Because maybe, just maybe, it'll be the first night of the rest of your life. Lived differently." The weight of that sentence crushed them. Completely. They weren't the confident, smug people who walked into this restaurant anymore. They were shattered reflections of everything they tried so hard to pretend they weren't. I took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch so far that it felt like the walls themselves were closing in on them. Then, I smiled. Not out of pity, not out of revenge, but out of absolute clarity. "You know what's funny?" I began, slowly swirling the wine in my glass. "I didn't come here tonight to teach anyone a lesson." Their eyes flicked toward me, hollow, desperate, almost childlike. begging for this nightmare to end. I just came for dinner. I smiled wider. But life has a funny way of serving the meal you deserve, not the one you ordered. A few of them blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. Others couldn't even look me in the eye. The manager chuckled under his breath, nodding in quiet approval. The waiters whispered to each other behind their hands, pretending to work. But I knew they were watching every second of this. And honestly, so was half the restaurant. They were witnesses. Silent. But oh, they would remember. So here's what's going to happen, I continued, leaning forward. You're going to leave this restaurant. Quietly, with what's left of your dignity, if you can still find it. And after tonight, you will never speak to me again. My voice dropped so low, it almost sounded like a threat. No one moved, not at first, because the realization hit harder than anything. It's over. Their game, their fake smiles, their shallow status contests, all of it. Over. Slowly. One by one, chairs scraped back. Hands trembled as purses were grabbed, jackets thrown over shoulders, wallets shoved back into pockets. No one spoke. Not even a whisper. Just the heavy, suffocating sound of defeat walking out the door. The girl who mocked my dress the most kept her head down, wiping her face over and over like she could erase the memory of tonight. But she couldn't. None of them could. Because some stains don't wash off, especially the kind that lives on your soul. As the last one walked toward the door, the manager stepped aside, holding it open with a polite, but brutal, smile. "Have a lovely evening," he said, voice dipped in sarcasm so elegant it almost sounded like charm. None of them replied. Not even a nod. Just silence. I sat there, alone at the table now. Or rather, free. Free from fake friends. Free from the shallow games. Free from anyone who ever thought my worth was stitched into a brand label. And for the first time in years, I felt lighter than air. The manager returned, bowing slightly. "Would you like us to prepare your favorite table in the VIP lounge, ma'am?" he asked. I smiled. Yes. I stood slowly, gathering my purse. Yes, I believe I will. And as I walked past the whispers, past the stares, past the waiters quietly fist-bumping each other, I realized something. I didn't just own this restaurant. I owned every single second of this night. As I stepped toward the VIP lounge, the whispers grew louder. Not malicious, but curious, admiring. "Is that her? The owner?" one voice murmured. "She's the one." Another gasped. Eyes followed me, not because of the price of my clothes, but because of the weight of my presence. The velvet curtain was pulled aside, and the soft glow of the VIP lounge welcomed me. Rich mahogany walls, dim golden lights, a private pianist playing softly in the corner. The air was different here, softer, quieter, and every person inside belonged to this world of true elegance, not because of wealth, but because of class. The manager personally pulled out my chair. "Your usual table, ma'am. Shall we bring your favorite dish?" I smiled. "Yes, and a bottle of the 2005 Chateau Margaux, please." His eyes widened slightly. "Excellent choice." He bowed, signaling the sommelier instantly. I sat back, letting the soft music fill the space where fake laughter used to be. And for the first time that night, I allowed myself to relax, to breathe, to exist, not in spite of anyone, but entirely for myself. Free, powerful, unapologetic. Then, my phone buzzed. A message. From one of them, the girl who mocked me the most. It simply said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know." I stared at it for a second, then deleted it. No reply. No explanation. No mercy. The sommelier arrived, presenting the bottle like it was a sacred artifact. "Shall I pour, ma'am?" I nodded, and the rich, deep red filled my glass like liquid velvet. I took a sip. Smooth, complex, expensive, but not nearly as satisfying as the taste of knowing who I had become. As I set the glass down, the manager returned with a gentle smile. "Just so you know," he said, lowering his voice, "some of our staff recorded parts of what happened earlier. I've never seen anything like it. You handled it masterfully." His eyes were filled with something close to admiration. I chuckled softly. "I didn't plan it, but life tends to write the best scripts when you least expect it." He nodded, fully agreeing. "Would you like us to delete the footage? Or—" I waved my hand dismissively. "No need. Let it exist. As a reminder. For everyone." I glanced out of the lounge window, watching as the group, my former friends, scattered into the night. Some arguing, some crying, some just hollow. All of them, forever changed. Not by me, but by themselves. By what they revealed, when they thought they were above someone else. And in that moment, I realized something even more powerful than revenge. I never needed to prove anything to anyone, because anyone worth my time already knows my worth. I smiled, leaned back, and let the world watch. As I savored my meal in the VIP lounge, a thought crossed my mind. Not regret, not anger, but clarity. "Funny," I whispered to myself, stirring my fork through the dish. "How quick people are to assign value, based on fabric and ignorance." The piano played softly in the background, like a soundtrack written just for this moment. The waiter returned, placing the dessert, a handcrafted soufflé, in front of me. "Compliments of the chef, ma'am," he said with a polite smile. I nodded, offering a genuine one in return, because unlike them, these people, the staff, had shown me respect long before they knew my title. I glanced down at my phone again. Another message, another number from that table. This time, "Please, can we talk?" I stared at it for a second. Not with anger, not with sadness, but with something far colder. Disinterest. I locked the screen. No reply. Silence was the loudest answer I could ever give. Outside the lounge window, I watched as the city lights flickered, people rushing through life, most of them never realizing how blind they are. Blind to character, blind to kindness, blind to everything that doesn't come with a price tag. But me, I was done playing that game. I wasn't just the owner of this restaurant. I was the owner of my story, of my narrative, of every room I walked into, whether they knew it or not. The manager approached one last time, hands behind his back, posture straight. "Ma'am, we've ensured that your table is permanently reserved whenever you wish to dine. No bookings, no wait times. Ever." His tone wasn't just professional. It was reverent, like speaking to royalty. I smiled softly. "Thank you. But honestly," I glanced back toward the empty table where it all began. "I don't think I'll ever need that table again." His eyes followed mine, and a knowing smile tugged at his lips. Understood. As the pianist shifted into a soft jazz melody, I stood up slowly, gathering my things. But this time, not to escape, not to flee from humiliation. No. This time, I was walking out as the version of myself I should have always been, the one who never needed to shrink, just to fit into someone else's comfort zone. I walked past the staff, each one offering respectful nods and soft smiles, past the curious eyes of guests who would later whisper stories about what happened that night. Stories that would grow, spread, become legend. a cautionary tale dressed in elegance and power. As the doors opened and the cool night air kissed my face, I realized something. They mocked my clothes because they couldn't see my worth. But the truth? I never wore my value on my skin. It's stitched into my soul. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, heels clicking against the pavement, the weight of the entire night lifted off my shoulders. Not as a burden released, but as a crown placed. I wasn't the girl who walked into that restaurant hoping to be accepted. I was the woman who walked out reminding the world, acceptance is something I grant, not something I seek. A breeze caught the fabric of my simple dress, and for the first time, I smiled at it. The same dress they mocked, the same dress they thought defined me. But what they didn't know is that it wasn't the dress that made me invisible to them. It was their own blindness. I paused for a moment, looking back at the restaurant. Lights glowing, music drifting through the air. And I whispered, not for them, but for me. Never again. Never again would I doubt my worth. Never again would I dim my light to make others comfortable. Never again would I sit at a table where love, respect, and decency weren't being served. My phone buzzed one last time. I didn't even bother to look. Some messages don't deserve to be read. Some people don't deserve access to your energy once they've shown you who they really are. Silence, block, move forward. And as I walked away, head high, back straight, shoulders set, I realized something so powerful, it almost made me laugh out loud. When you own your worth, you don't just change the room, you become the room. And that night, I didn't just leave a restaurant, I left, a version of myself behind, forever.